everybody, welcome to another episode of What a Hell of a Way to Dad. It's Nate and Francis back for another Dad Chat. Nate, how are you doing today?
I have a video that I'll send you later where I just filmed myself holding my daughter while she's crying and freaking out, making a static expression on my face. And then I explained to the camera that she's crying because the light switch was too far away. And I'm not even making fun of her. This is very typical of, she's almost 21 months old. This is pretty standard behavior, but she's been a little unwell with some teething, and she may have a kind of like a mild, very common communicable skin thing that happens with kids her age, which would explain like the discomfort. But I was thinking about this recently. A friend was asking for advice about flying with a 1-year-old, which we did, multiple times with my daughter. And like, it depends on the kid, and some things are better, really there's things you can do, but it really depends on the day. But that being said, I realized that I would be much more wary to fly with her now than back then, because at, 9 months, 11 months, 13 months, still a baby, but she wasn't walking yet. And we weren't quite into the big feelings mode yet. And now we are. Right. And it's just very, very different. And the meltdown can come because of the most absurd thing. This morning, she got really mad and lay down on the floor, started yelling. And basically, she got really mad and lay down in the hallway and placed her head basically against the door. So she was more or less yelling under the crack of the door into a room that nobody was in. And she was mad because I had made her, after having walked through the house with her in my arms, allowing her to touch every framed picture on the wall. After having done that twice, I was like, okay, we've done enough now. You've touched them all. And thus the meltdown. She also did a similar one because Cynthia was like, it's time to change her diaper. And Cynthia later realized that at one point she was mad because our daughter had given her the muslin cloth she was holding, and she was angry that Cynthia wasn't holding it in the right place. She should hold it against the left side of her face, not the right. You know what I mean? That level of particularity. Right. But this is somebody who is talking, but not really. She can say yes, she can say no, but she can't really explain what's going on. When you ask if she wants something, a lot of it is head shake, head shake, head shake, head shake, and then yes. So complex things like, do you want to talk about your feelings about not being able to touch every picture in the house for a third time? Not really there yet, you know what I mean? No.
Well, don't worry. One day she's going to be big and tall, and she's going to be able to touch all the picture frames that she wants all on her own. Just walk around and do her little OCD, poke around. And
yeah, I mean, she loves, because we have the kind of like, it's not wallpaper, it's like a sponge plaster kind of stucco effect. And it's like a kind of like a crosshatch on the walls, but it's like a stipple, like dots on the ceiling. She loves to touch the ceiling. Now, Cynthia's not tall enough to lift her all the way up. I am, so I am doing a lot of overhead press because my daughter weighs about 25, 27 pounds, thereabouts, typical. She's in like 50th percentile for her age, and doing overhead. And believe me, it's like, yeah, it might be, no, it's not one rep. It's multiple reps, and it's doing reps and holding because she wants to be up there a while. And I'm like, it's just the same dots everywhere. It doesn't matter. She wants to touch it. She tried to do that first thing in the morning. I picked her up out of her crib and she pointed to the ceiling. I was like, no, we're not doing that.
Come on, Dad. It's time for your stretches. You're old man.
So my left arm
Reach
is
up high,
really
Dad.
like, I really need to do some like rolling or something to kind of using like the, trigger point massage ball or something. Cause like my rotator cuff in my left shoulder, just like everything about it is just really tight right now. And I was like, what is going on? And I realized like, it's probably all these times I've been doing overhead press or like reaching in weird ways really far to like try to retrieve toys that she's thrown under the couch and things like that. And I mean, I love her. Don't get me wrong. Like this is the thing I voluntarily entered into because I want to be a parent. I wanted to be a parent. I'm happy to be a parent. But this is just an age where this is every day. Like every day when she's awake is yelling. And there's just no getting around to that. So if you want to be a parent, I encourage you, strongly encourage you. It's wonderful. However, this age is basically crying, yelling, and banging all day long, the entire time, unless they're napping or like they're in the brief moment of zen because like, I don't know, they saw an interesting colored bird or something like that.
They found a full box of Kleenex to
a whole thing of, rip every Kleenex out, rip every baby wipe out.
Throw the diapers everywhere. The only time they're quiet is when they're in the middle of some sort of destruction.
Well, it's really funny too, because like she doesn't really, I mean, she knows her name and she sometimes responds and sometimes chooses not to. But if she doesn't realize she's been spotted doing something she knows she's not supposed to be doing, and I say her name, or I say, hey, what are you doing? Then she does this like a jump scare start, and then she like does these funny little quick steps, like kind of like skittering away, like she's doing her little like walking away from the scene of the crime, looking extremely guilty walk, and it's very funny because she's like, you sort of like as if I'm not going to notice that, but like the jump scare is literally practically jump up in the air, and then she just goes like away, and I'm like, I did see you, you know, I saw you doing all of it.
Yeah, our daughter did the exact same thing. She would also, when she would get surprised or like, I just take her for a dog walk, and in our neighborhood, occasionally there's other dogs that are just kind of out, like they're not strays, but you know, they're on adventures. Sure. So you know, it's like it's a dog, but it's not that dangerous. You know, and a lot of people own smaller dogs, and we got confronted by a dog while we were on the walk, and it's like her brain completely blanked out, and she just ran and then hid behind a tree from this other dog. Now she was like 3 or 4. You know, this is not. She wouldn't do this now. Well, maybe she would do this now. I don't know. But it is very cute to see that like surprise, and then like the id brain, the lizard brain takes over, and it's just like, no, I need to skitter up a tree or something and be safe.
It's weird because I don't necessarily know if she's at the age yet where stuff will scare her. Like I haven't seen, like when she gets scared, it's more because like she fell.
Or startled.
Yeah, she fell or something, and she didn't. It's not necessarily that she's hurt, but she's startled by that and she's scared. But like if I try to, for example, talking about what sounds animals make, I'm trying to find a way to make the sound that bears make without it being scary. But like she just looks at me funny. She's not scared by it. I know that'll eventually happen. Is, you know, I can recall having nightmares about scary animal pictures, or you know, the cartoon dragon Smog when I was like 3 or 4. So I know that will happen. But for now, that's not really the case. She doesn't really get like scared by stuff. But definitely a loud noise will get her attention. If it startles her, she'll definitely, you know, turn her head. And if she trips and falls or something, or it's like a surprise, or like she pulls something over and it makes a loud noise, like she'll sometimes start crying just because it's startle response, and also like this wasn't supposed to happen, kind of a thing.
I was supposed to be able to climb up on top of this, not it fall over on me and everything.
Knock on wood, that's not really been a thing so far. She's not really into climbing that much. I mean, there are some times when I'm like, oh God, please don't figure out if you get a toe hold on that thing, you can stand up higher. But so far, not been a thing.
We had, in our neighborhood, there's a house down, it's been vacant for a while, and a family just moved in, and they have like 3 or 4 young boys who, I don't know if they all live there, or some of them are visiting on a regular basis, but they are, they're all a little bit younger than my daughter, but also they're all older than toddler. I love them because, you know, I have a daughter, I love my daughter, but there's a distinct lack of like any male energy that kind of happens in the house because it's me and my wife and all the animals. So these like 4 boys just suddenly appearing, and one of them immediately jumping onto the shoulders of another boy and then scrambling up a tree in the front of the house. And it's like, I'm glad you're not my kids, but I'm glad to see that there's a bunch of rough and tumble kids that are still out here, because my daughter never did any of that shit. She's not a danger kid, which is good as a father. Like, good. I'm glad you don't want to climb the scary trees like I used to do when I was a kid, because I know I gave my mother a heart attack. But it is heartening to see all these other kids who are ready to climb trees and break their arms. And luckily, I got a lot of emergency medicine down, so we're good.
I fell out of a tree when I was 5, and I didn't break anything, but I scraped myself really bad, like up from like right above my belly button up to my sternum, and it was like on like a broken tree branch or twig, or you know, something like it was a piece of wood that scraped me. And what's funny is I do actually still have a scar, but it's very, very small now, because it kind of reminds you of how small a 5-year-old is. You know what I mean? Like for me, it
didn't stretch with the rest of you.
No, it dominated like for a couple of months after, maybe like a year after. Like I had this kind of like reddish scar mark from where it had been there. It wasn't like deep enough to need stitches. It was superficial, but it was kind of wide, and it was like jagged because it was from a tree, a branch, right, etc. And you know, it's wild because I was like, I thought it had gone away. But it's like, no, it's there. It's just very small. It's like yay big, but you know, like I'm making a sign with my hands of like maybe 3-4 inches, but now it's just this tiny little fine white line like on my sternum, as opposed to it looked like I had like amateur open heart surgery when I was 5. I hurt myself so much when I was 5, dude. The year we lived in Rhode Island, I had to go to the ER 3 times for just being insane. And in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have been allowed to run around as unsupervised as I did, but it was 1989. It was a different time. Genuinely, It was 36 years ago. So like stuff was just different back then.
Yeah, I don't have a big scar on my chest just through the grace of God. God, not by any, like, because I wasn't doing, like, I was up in trees on constantly. I was always climbing fences. And then once I was able to ride my bike with my friends and go wherever I want, you know, at the age of like 13, we were doing that, which I don't know if I'd let my kid do that these days, just because everybody drives a massive murder machine and there's no like decent bike lanes. But yeah, it's how our parents ignored us back in the day is not how we ignore our kids today. You know, not to hold anything against our parents, because like they're doing the best they can, but also like, holy shit, why were you letting me do some of this stuff?
I did find it funny that the 3 times I had to go to the ER when I was that age, after the first time my mom felt bad, she took me to McDonald's, and on the 3rd time I asked if we could go to McDonald's, she was like, no, you're going to your room. Like, she was so mad. The first time was I went sledding, but my brother didn't want to go. My brother wasn't really outdoorsy kind of person at all, and he didn't want to go sledding. And that winter in Rhode Island, it had dumped snow. Like we had basically a blizzard on Thanksgiving, and it stayed that way. Like the snow stuck around, and like it was very, very snowy. Like in retrospect, because it's that part of New England, like that. New England does get a ton of snow, but Newport and where we were in Rhode Island, like is so like it's an island, and it's so in the ocean basically that like it mostly it gets cold, but not like enough to really dump snow that often, or at least not that early in the season. And that year we had a ton, and I had gone sledding and I really enjoyed it, and my brother didn't want to go, so I decided to go on my own. And I was five in like 2 months, like very young. And I went out to, I mean, it was a Navy base, but it was like, but it wasn't back in the day when stuff was like super fence and checkpoints and shit. You know what I mean? Like it was, but it wasn't the same as just like living out in the middle of nowhere. So I think there was definitely more of a culture of letting your kids run around, especially boys, because it was just troops of kids that would just run around. And I thought I went to the sledding hill we went to, but I went to the wrong spot, and I got on my sled and went down it, and I should have bailed, but I froze and I hit a house and I broke my collarbone. And the house that I hit was actually my brother's best friend's house. And so his parents came out and recognized me, and they called my parents. And then like my brother's friend and I think his sister, if I remember correctly, and some other kids actually pulled me in the sled like a litter, because I couldn't move. I couldn't walk back to my parents, and I couldn't get up. I was just in pain. I literally couldn't sit up. I couldn't get up. I was just, everything hurt. And they took me to the ER, and it turned out that I had broken my collarbone, and I had broken it not like a clean break, but like split it like a wishbone.
Oh wow.
So they had to basically set it and put me in a brace for a couple of weeks at least. So I had this like cross my chest, kind of like the best way I could describe it in my mind's eye was it kind of looked like a cross between like a karate belt and like a tennis player's headband, and it just held that in place. And I can remember this really, really intensely, that I woke up the next morning when we come home and my parents put me on like a mat to sleep on the floor because my bunk was the top bunk and I couldn't get up and down. And if I'd fell, it would have been a disaster. And I remember I woke up in the morning and I couldn't sit up and actually had to ask for help. And my dad had to come and like lift me up because I couldn't move myself up and down. I could walk, etc. But for some reason, it was just too painful for me to make the motion to pull myself up.
To sit up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second time I went to the ER was I was having so much fun barreling down the street on my bike wearing a...
Wait a minute. How long did it take for your collarbone to heal, though? That you're like... Because like, I'm just thinking 3 times in a year, a broken collarbone, feels like it's going to be a couple months.
I think it was probably about... Okay, was probably about a month or 2 months. Like it was probably about... I think I had to wear the brace for about 4 weeks or 6 weeks, and then it healed up. And by the time that like it actually came off, like they could take it off. Like it wasn't like a cast, but it had to stay on most of the time. By the time that it came off, like everything was fine. My range of motion was fine. It healed up okay. And then but it's weird about how you break a collarbone. It's like, how did I hit that fucking building? I don't really have any recollection of it. I mean, I guess all I can think of is that I must have, it was my left, and I swear I hit it with right. I must have hit it with my shoulder. Yeah.
Were you sledding face first too?
Well, no, it was like, you know, those, they basically look like your classic kind of like boat hull sled. And it has the string, like the rope that's knotted on either end. So you pull it, and the idea is you kind of like pull it and you shift your body. And I hadn't quite mastered the turning of it. And so I saw what was happening. And what I should have done is bailed out, but I just kind of froze, or I tried to turn and avoid it, and I just kept going and hit the house. I mean, like I said, if someone had yelled to bail out, maybe I would have listened, but I don't know. It's, you know, that classic ADHD kid who's constantly crashing his fucking sled into your house. I will say that the third injury that I'm going to talk about is the same hill.
Okay.
But no, the second time I was riding my bike, barreling down the street, having a blast, wearing a novelty plastic fighter pilot helmet, head down, going as fast as I could.
Didn't help, did it?
And my friend's dad was driving his conversion van van and saw me coming and stopped and started honking the horn, and I just didn't notice and just barreled right into the fucking van and rolled up onto the windshield and cut my nose open and stuff. So they had taken me in, but it was fine. I didn't need stitches. And then the third time I got on, my mom had let me get it. Basically, like, I got a new bike and I took it out to go riding it. And it was too much bike for a 5-year-old. And I rode it down that fucking hill and I hit somebody's picnic bench and landed on it and split it in half with my leg. And my leg was so fucked up. Like, it wasn't broken, but it was just covered in abrasions. Like, I couldn't walk. It was awful. And my mom was like, "You are the stupidest child on the fucking planet." Like, she was so, because like I said, this is the span of from November until about June or July. You have to be June. From like 5 years and 2 months to like 5 years and 9 months, I managed to injure myself this many times. And once again, there is a part of me that's like, well, Mom, you didn't have a job at the time. What the fuck were you doing? Why were you just like, get on this mountain bike and ride, 5-year-old? I'm sure with all your history of past injuries, there's no need for me to worry. And the good news is we know there aren't any hills around here.
There's no more snow. So obviously you can't hurt yourself.
Like, I know you're happy and you're proud of me that I'm a pretty competent bike rider at 5, but like, what do you think I am going to associate with mountain bike? I'm going to associate it with the thing closest to a mountain, the hill that you go sledding on and die. Like, oh my God, dude. I actually went back there. We went back to Newport one time because Cynthia used to live really close to there. And it was at Middletown, I think is where it's at. And it's so funny because like, yeah, it's not that big of a hill. It's really not that big of a hill. None of it's big. I just, in your mind's eye, it's gigantic. In your mind's eye, it's fucking Everest. But so I know hopefully my daughter isn't like me. I also one time when I was 6 tried to roll down a steepish hill on a skateboard and fell and broke one of my teeth, and it was very bloody.
Ooh, you got a lot of teeth injury too, don't you?
Yeah. Then my dad decided to get revenge on the skateboard by destroying it with an axe for some reason.
Jesus.
And just kind of left it outside. It was like
as a lesson to all the other skateboards. I guess.
I don't fucking know. I mean, that's so weird in retrospect, isn't it? It's like, you're never riding your skateboard again. I think I actually was willing to accept that at that point because I'd fucking destroyed one of my baby teeth and it was blood everywhere. But I think the idea of like, I'm going to do a public execution of your skateboard and then leave it out there's like, also it was a Peanuts themed skateboard with Snoopy on it. That's Joe Cool riding a skateboard. Like, what did Snoopy do? Man, it's not his fault.
Yeah, shit. Should have gotten the one with the Sopwith camel on it because that Snoopy's a war hero.
Well, yeah, but it would have been problematic to have that in Germany. I think they've got they're really sore about those sorts of things.
We don't like the cartoon dog that shot down our national hero. Actually, no, Snoopy kept getting fucked up by the Red Baron.
God,
so.
I remember I got better at sledding in Germany, but then one time I was sledding when I would have been about 8, and like I was going down with a friend in the same exact sled as the one that broke my collarbone, and like they're not maneuverable at all. And that hill was actually pretty steep. We were going down it, and they're like, one of my friend's little brothers, like maybe 4, was out there with parents, etc. And he walked in front of us, and we were like, "Move, go!" We tried to move. We should have bailed out, but it's a reaction that unless you practice it, you don't think about. The idea of like your instinct should be to bail out. And so we were like, move, go, move. And we were just fucking plowing into this kid and just flipping him over the air. And like, I felt so, dude, I laugh about it now. I was like inconsolable crying. I thought I had hurt him. I was so worried about him. And like, they thought he might have broken his nose, but they took him to the doctor and he was fine. And like his mom called and she's like, "Can I speak to Nathan?" Because I know he was really upset. And she was just like, "Don't worry, he's fine. Like, I know you're worried, but it's okay. His nose isn't broken." So like, I wasn't like mean about it. I didn't do it intentionally. And that's pretty obvious, even if you're like, "Hey, what the fuck, older kids? Why did you like mow down my child like it's the fucking Buddhist monks in Grand Theft Auto 1? And it's like, but it was an accident. So like those sleds are just bad, man. Those sleds, they're not maneuverable at all. We don't do any PMCS on them. We don't do bailout training.
Yeah, we had a really nice hill when I was growing up that led from where I lived down. The way that our street was set up was it was down a hill, but it curled around itself. So we were at the top of the street. My friend's house was at the bottom of the street, but by the way it curved, you could go down this hill from my house and you'd be at my friend's house. So there's a great sledding hill. It had 2 trees that, with my sled, my parents got me the nice like radio flyer one that's got the steering in the front.
The little levers, like you can kind of pull it. Yeah,
you can kind of pull and push, and you can put your feet on it and pull, and it gives you some amount of steerage. And so we were always able to go down and go in between the trees, and it was great. very much, Star Wars trench run kind of stuff. And then my buddy Kenny his dad bought him one of those like plastic, 1990s plastic sleds with absolutely no steering in it whatsoever. And we immediately ran into a tree with it.
Well, yeah, that was probably the same thing that I had.
Yeah, we laughed our asses off about it and then dragged it back up to the top and did it again because we weren't hitting so hard that we were getting injured, but we were hitting hard enough that we were being flung off of it.
Yeah.
So it had that fun, like kind of hit and bail out and ditch into the snow. And, we're at the time, like you said, we're obviously NASCAR fast going down there, but I'm sure if like now it'd be like, oh, look, you go down about like 5 miles an hour and you bump into the thing and then all your friends fling yourselves off of it because it's such a big
You think it's going like insanely fast. Yeah. But also it's like, kids aren't even familiar with Sonny and Cher, let alone the whole sort of saga of Sonny Bono, which hadn't happened yet anyway. So like, frankly, you wouldn't have had that cautionary tale. I mean, other people have died in skiing accidents before him, but it's just, you wouldn't think of that as a kid. You wouldn't think it's possible that you could like, oh man. Okay, trigger warning. This is going to talk about something not about happened to me, but very, very traumatic. So involving the death of a child. So just bear this in mind, please. A friend of mine told me once that when he was a kid, he had neighbors where he grew up. There's 2 boys, and they had a tree house. And he was playing with them one time. He was friends with the older boy, and they were brothers arguing. And his brother was like, "Stop! Don't get in the treehouse." And they were fighting, or kind of squabbling. And he kicked his brother, and he fell off the treehouse and broke his neck and died immediately.
Ooh.
And his brother was freaking out and trying to like wake him up, but like he was dead. And my friend was like, "I have to go home," and just went home. And like obviously that happened. And I bring this up not to fucking bring the mood down massively, but more to say like the thing that's crazy about it, and one of the things why I think back about like how lucky we were when it comes to some of this stuff is that like you can die even as a little kid when you don't weigh that much if you're in a sled and you hit something hard and it just breaks the wrong way. I mean, think about me. Like if I had connected with the wall of that building in a way that hit my head, I was wearing a beanie, but I wasn't wearing a helmet. I might have died. Frankly, I might have gotten a significant enough brain injury that like by the time they figured out what it was and got me to the doctor, like it might have been too late. And a lot of the stuff that we played with back then was just like, yeah, it met the basic standard, but like those sleds, describing them now in my mind's eye, it is basically like you made a sled by cutting a garbage can, like a plastic garbage can in half and punching 2 holes in and putting like a little bit of nylon cord through that you pull on. It's like, what are you supposed to do pulling on? It's like, it's like, do you think that if you pull in one direction, it's going to tip the sled's mass entirely? It's like, no, it's going to slightly bend the plastic, but the thing's going to keep going the direction it's in. You have to kind of like learn to lean with it. And even then it's very inaccurate. And I think about that story because like my friend and his neighbor and his brother getting killed that way. And it's like, now I think we've got a better understanding, and we still have crazy shit like this happen. But like, having a tree house with a sheer drop, not really a safe thing. Certainly not for little kids, slightly older kids maybe, but even then, like it's dangerous because like think about the dumb shit we used to do. Like, hey, like I triple dog dare you that you can't take this bed sheet and make it into a parachute and jump out of like a 10-foot, 15-foot tree. And it's like similarly stuff like bikes and bike helmets and things like wrist braces when you're rollerblading or roller skating or skateboarding. So many of these things, like the safety regulations and the safety sort of options available, developed because of people getting seriously hurt or crippled or killed. And I bring that up like it's not just like a throwaway story. I was reminded of it just because I thought like, I think that's the thing is that these are all insanely funny stories. We talk about like the dumb shit we used to do, but like if my buddy's friend had kicked his brother out of the treehouse and he fell and he laid on his butt and he was like, ow, that hurts. Like it would be a funny story, but instead he killed him.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like, he didn't intend to. I know he didn't intend to because even not knowing the situation, that's just not, and he has to live with the consequences of that. And that's insanely traumatic. That's so unbelievably traumatic. But that wasn't the intention, but the situation was such that one false move in a way and you could just wind up killing your little brother. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, they just gotta fall wrong.
Yeah, and also you think about nowadays, I mean, it was the same problem back in America. I think it was less ubiquitous, or maybe they just didn't talk about it as much, but like dad left gun unsecured, kid showing off gun to friends, kills sibling, etc. My dad almost did that when he was 4. His uncle had a gun in his briefcase and he found it and he came into the room and was like, I'm a cowboy, and was pointing it at people and it was loaded, like.
Not good gun safety.
No,
going on there.
Guy with a briefcase in 1957, you should probably not leave a loaded gun in it and not lock the briefcase. In case my voice travels through time, it bends around the sun and goes back to 1957, and you're like, what the fuck is a podcast? Like, maybe that's but you know what I mean? Like, that I think about how unsafe some of this stuff was, and like a lot of it is very funny in retrospect, but then it's like, it wouldn't be funny if, for example, like this caused like a life-altering event. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which, not to bring it down, but it's like, yeah, people love to complain about, oh, and back in our day, we drank from those and played in traffic and ate glass. And it's like, yeah, and that's why you're all fucking stupid. Like, that's why every one of you have
you guys were all eating lead paint. Like, yeah, those hoses were lined with lead, y'all. You're dying.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, you all have brain worms.
Well, yeah. It's, and like in a less funny sense, like that's why almost all of you have that story from grade school or middle school or high school or college or whatever about like, oh yeah, my friend who didn't come back from summer vacation because like, you know, the cars were basically like they were like novelty devices to crumple into the size of like a Rubik's cube, and like they got in a relative like a survivable car accident, but back then they just fucking killed you, you know, like. Or it was, you know, what was it? The Ford Pinto or the Chevy Nova? What was the one that exploded?
The Nova.
The Nova. Yeah. I mean, obviously the Trabant in East Germany was like the famous exploding one. But yeah, we had those.
Now we've got the Tesla that will explode on you. So no lack of cars that will explode and kill a child.
You know what's crazy is I realized now I don't think I saw any horrible trauma, but when I was 6, we had just moved to Germany. Like it was still summer. We moved there right before the 4th of July. I remember that, 1990. And it was still summer. So this technically was still West Germany, but like the border was open, right? Mm-hmm. And back in those days, it would invariably, maybe it's still the case, normal traffic is normal traffic. And then suddenly you're just like, oh my God, a normal thing that takes 15 minutes is now going to take me 3 hours because there's this insane traffic jam. And it's always because there's an accident. This time I realize it now, looking back to the shape of it, we could see black smoke on the horizon as we got closer and closer as we inched forward in the traffic jam. And there was a Trabant, the East German car, the 2-cylinder car that had the gas tank in the back, and if you hit it in the back, caught on fire. It was pulled on the side of the road, and there were people standing outside just kind of watching, and there was, you know, like nearby, and I believe there were cops there, but I can't remember definitively. But the car was on fucking fire, like completely on fire. And like, I don't know if that is a fatal accident. I mean, I've seen some shit where you know it's a fatal accident, when you just know it's a fatal accident. Like I've seen some shit with like a obliterated Jeep Wrangler and like people sitting kind of in a state of shock with their heads in their hands on like the berm on the highway, and like there's ambulances everywhere. And it's like, yeah, that was a fatal accident. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But yeah, looking back on it, it's like that shit, man, stuff was so dangerous back then. Yeah,
shit killed you constantly back then. We were all lucky to have survived it. And yeah, this idea of like, oh, everything's, you know, pussified now.
Yeah, it's all woke and gay and feminized. It's like, no, it's just like we don't have things that are like, you know, the lawn darts that kill you. Like, remember, fuck the lawn darts, like they had concrete in them. Like, hey, throw this dart up in the air. What, do you really think that the boys are gonna, girls, whomever, kids are gonna follow the fucking instructions as put in the letter? Like, definitely don't throw these at your friends and siblings, cousins, enemies, etc. Like, come on, man.
Yeah, immediately doing that shit. Yeah, you know, like baby proofing, putting little soft foamy things on the corners of coffee tables. I wish I had been doing that for years. The amount of times I've cracked myself on the side of a coffee table.
I mean, like, how many of us have fucking weird, like, dent-shaped and or like chunk-shaped scars on our heads because our parents, that wasn't a thing back then.
Right. Like, no, that builds character, Nate. You need to you need to give yourself minor concussions as a child to really grow into the adult that you're going to be with major concussions from the army.
I mean, like, also the other day I was trimming facial hair, and I realized that the trimmer had gotten a little too close and it cut a little further in on my mustache than I normally would, which is fine because I mean, this is going to grow over it, whatever. But I realized I have a scar there from when I was like 2, because my parents had a side table with a marble top that wasn't drilled or screwed in. It was probably held in by like a weak coat of glue, which isn't going to, especially if it's old and brittle, isn't going to support it if you pull the table down. So that's what I fucking did. And I brought the marble top on top of myself and dinged up my face. And I still have, I mean, it's very faint once again, but I still have that scar. And yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Like, yeah, obviously on one hand, it's like, look, I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I'm going to be completely honest. I would simply not have a tall, top heavy side table with a marble top that isn't fixed in or drilled, glued, it's set, bolted. You know what I mean? I simply wouldn't do that. It does look nice with all like the fucking, you know, where they put it on the router to get like the bevels and circles on the legs, and it's all like nice woodwork and stain, and you've got the marble. It does look very nice, don't get me wrong. But I also, I have a child who loves pulling on things, and I just, I wouldn't have done that personally. So when I look at it, yeah, it's like talking about rough and tumble stuff, and it's like, yeah, man, like we had a lot of fun, but I was like, there's just so much shit that was so dangerous. And I think kids, like some boys aren't into that. Some girls are, vice versa. It does oftentimes get sort of presented along gender lines. I don't really think that's the case all the time. But in general, I do think that we really encourage it with boys. And so it's like, why are they so rambunctious? It's like, well, because we basically are like, go harm each other, go cause each other physical pain, run around and climb, do dangerous things. And with girls, it feels like less so. People are just like, no, don't do that. That's dangerous. Or girls don't do that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm all about letting my daughter play with those boys because she needs to. She always complained when she did like her summer camps and her she'd go to the science center and she'd do STEAM summer camps and everything and complain about there's too many boys. It's full of boys. The boys are loud. They're rambunctious. They don't sit down and listen. And like, not that my daughter is a sit down and listen kind of kid, but she is a quiet. She likes things quiet. She likes it orderly in some way. She doesn't like a lot of running around and screaming. And with these kids, it's like, you need to go. I need you to go and play with some kids that are going to push you around a little bit. Not in like a mean way, you know, but like in that, hey, we're going to run around and kind of fuck with each other. If you want to play around, we're going to do the same with you. She also, like next door, the neighbors have a couple of grandkids that are about my daughter's age, and the two of them will fight and wrestle and everything, and my daughter will kind of be on the outside trying to, like, how do I manage this? How do I deal with this? How do I and so now we got these other, she's just surrounded by boys here, which is great. Though across the street we have a family that is I believe West African, and they have a little girl about my daughter's age too, and she likes to come over. So we got a lot of kids that my daughter is running around with, and I'm glad of it because, you know, she doesn't get that playground experience since we homeschool. So she doesn't really have that, like, I need you to just go out into a field with a bunch of kids and figure something out for 30 minutes to keep yourselves entertained. And so now she's doing that, and she's getting a lot better at it. We also make the joke of you know, she needs a bunch of kids to direct their play. Not in like, she's not bossy, but she is just like, hey, look, I'm going to coordinate here. Here's a game we're going to do. She made up a game called Pokemon Tag that she had them all playing. So it's, you know, she's getting better about hanging out with all of these boys. But I am, you know, we also keep an eye on it. But everybody seems okay. You know, it's you gotta throw the kid out into all of these with these other kids to, I don't know. It's because, like I said, she doesn't have that traditional school experience, so she doesn't get a lot of interaction with other kids throughout the day like you would go into school. So it's nice that we can kind of boot her outside and say, go fuck around with those kids for an hour. I'm going to sit out here and read a book. Nobody break anything, please.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter obviously is going to start nursery not too long from now here. You know, basically, like, it's not like school daycare, but it's a service provided through the local government where, like, it's state sponsored, it's state subsidized, and that's going to be 5 days a week. So she will actually be in effectively like baby school, which is great.
Nice.
Really, really great. Because she had that in London and she liked it. The staff loved her, the kids there loved her, and I think it'll be great, and it'll be a lot more interacting with other kids because at present there's not as much. I will say that because we don't have childcare on Wednesdays, we have something we've arranged with family friends, and they have a 4-year-old son, and he loves her and she loves playing with him, and he's super energetic and he loves making her laugh by doing the dumbest things he possibly can. And so it's really great. She gets to, like, and she's always in a great mood when she comes back because she's just like, it's a change of things, and she gets to hang out with not a grown-up but rather another kid who is like loves making her laugh. So there's a lot of like the kind of social stuff there, and I'm excited for that too. I mean, obviously it's gonna be a while before it's really like in the you go from play date to like actual school friends kind of age. I know, like, you know, time passes pretty quickly. It's one of the things for her. I just want her to, well, you know, like have that kind of sense of community, because I mean, Cynthia and I both moved so often that, like, we had it, but you had to basically build it every single place you went. And, you know, I kind of remember. I mean, I remember California pretty well, but I don't remember moving there. I was too little. I don't think I was even 2 yet when we moved there. So it would have been my daughter's age when we moved there. And I remember being there and having friends there when I was like 4, almost 5. I had really good friends in Rhode Island, but like we were all in kindergarten, but everyone's dad was in the Naval War College. And so everyone's dad left after a year to a different assignment. And like we were all split to the 4 winds. Like I don't know anyone from back then that even with Facebook we've ever stayed in contact because we were just too young. Like we don't remember each other's names. Like,
right. Even though like there is Ken, There was Jimmy, and then there was Fat Lip.
There was John and Robert. We were really good friends. My brother's best friend was named Hank, which seems like a throwback to an olden time. I remember my brother's elementary school had like a end of school kind of yearbook thing where kids had contributed like creative stuff, and like I'd say 2/3 of the poems written by the kids were about Nintendo. This was 1989 to 1990 school year, so
Sure.
this absolutely tracks. That's okay. The parents are mad, but if you dared write something positive about The Simpsons, they would kill you. What I would say though is I'm excited for her to have that kind of social stuff, and also because of the language barrier. There's not really, but like she's going to actually be a native speaker, and I'm not. And I'm happy for her. I'm really happy that she'll be able to have that, and hopefully like have a kind of like a sense of growing up and having a community and things like that. Because I do think like it's not insurmountable, but it's not a thing that me or her mom had, and I think it's actually really important. I think back then my parents and a lot of the kind of conventional thought was like, no, actually it's good for kids to have like tons of different experiences, and like it's much better to like get around places than, you know, it's like, oh, you be in the military, you get to see the world and take your kids all over these places, and it's like, yeah, but I mean, it's not as if you're going to like, you know, yeah, seeing, you know, in fairness, my parents actually lucked out pretty hardcore when you think about the assignments, because there's so many worse ones in the Army, you know, like Fort Ord, California, back when Monterey, California, they had a big active duty base, and then
fucking Fort Irwin at any time.
Yeah, Newport Naval Base, you know, in Rhode Island. That was really nice. Patch Barracks in Germany, and we lived off base in Germany. That was really nice. Got a little less lucky with fucking my dad being the IG of the New Mexico National Guard, because New Mexico's a beautiful state, but man, like it's gotten better to some extent, but it's one of the poorest states in America, and like it's just so under-resourced. Like there were schools like not in the Santa Fe school district, but like in nearby counties, like they just didn't have running water for months at a time. I remember seeing it on the news. Like they had to have like the cafeteria outside, and everything had to be done off of like propane burners with like tanks of water and stuff. Like, you know, it's like, how do you have a whole school for no running water for months? You know, like that kind of shit. It's Santa Fe. I mean, New Mexico is a beautiful, beautiful place, but there also were like basically no kids where we lived. Like we wound up living in a subdivision where most of the roads were washboard. They weren't paved. There was a Mormon family down the street from us, and they had a bunch of kids. And then I had a friend that I met who lived like probably about a mile. But there was one playground that was like very obviously intended for little kids. And there was like a summer community pool that would be open in the summer months. That was, I'm not joking, 2.5 or 3 miles away. And you had to like, there was a sidewalk kind of, you could ride a bike there. But like there was just nothing where we lived at. And so looking back on it, it's like, yeah, there is this notion of like, oh, change stuff up, go see the world. But it's like, yeah, but imagine going from when you move a kid, I was a little younger than your daughter, from an environment where you've got a really tight knit group of friends at the age where like that's super important to you, and you can just walk out and go see your friends and do stuff, and there's like a community, and there's like a town square, and it's safe, and adults know the kids, so they know if something's a problem, you know what I mean? Like it's a small town, right? And you take that, and then it's like, all right, guess what? It's super beneficial for you to move and try new things. So now you're gonna live in the middle of the fucking desert, and there's no one there.
You're gonna learn about loneliness out here.
Yeah. And my 5th grade classroom we were in an extension building that didn't have running water. So we had one of our classroom chores. There was a bathroom trailer nearby that did have water. And so one of our chores in the class was you had to go and fill up this great big Gatorade container with water. Like 2 kids had to carry it and fill it up and bring it back into the classroom so we could drink water, because they're...
Who knew you were preparing to be infantry when you were a kid?
Yeah,
too?
10 to 8, you know, the year I turned 11 in school, my 5th grade classroom was in a chew. Like
it's Wednesday. It's Nate's turn to go dig the slit trench latrine.
Yeah, it's like in the container housing unit. Yeah, it's because the school was like it was just oversubscribed. Like there were just there were too many kids. The classes were too full. I mean, in retrospect, our classes were fucking big. I thought, I guess in my mind's eye, that like it was just normal to have like a larger than a platoon sized element for a class in 4th grade or 5th grade. We had to at least 35 kids in our classes. And I realized now they're so like, oh no, if you went to like a fancy school, it would be much, much less than that. So I don't know, man. Like I'm excited. I'm this is kind of like scattershot memory edition, but no, I'm excited like for my daughter to have kind of like a place that she's from where like she's got a community. You know what I mean? Like I genuinely think that's important. And yeah, I think that like my parents didn't have a choice, in the sense that like at a certain point, my dad was career Army, and like he would have been stupid to just walk away from it without getting a pension. So like that's what it was going to be. And that was going to involve moving a ton. fun forever because that's, you know, your wife's not supposed to have a life. Your kids don't matter. So like, I'm glad that that's not in any way the situation that I'm in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm still in St. Louis, is that this is where I'm from. This is where my community is. This is where I know where everything is. Like, even going to a different state, we went to Chicago over the weekend, and like, even that's like, the roads are all weird. Like, not that they're any different than the roads are where I'm at. It's just I don't know the roads. So I have a very, you know, being in the Army, of course, you have a sense of adventure to it. But now being in my 40s is like, I just want to be comfortable and to know where things are. But yeah, Chicago is always a beautiful place to visit, though. So
yeah, Chicago's really nice, man. I've always enjoyed spending time there. I mean, it gets a bad rap in some ways for being kind of like really kind of like corn-fed, despite like a very big city, like being like kind of like a negative culture zone. But I don't know. I like Chicago. There's like a lot of interesting stuff there, and it's just it's a very nice quality of life there, honestly. Like, or at least it was when I spent time there. Yeah,
it's like, you know, New York, but you don't have to deal with the East Coast. You know, you can have all the trappings of a really big modern city. Because, like, you know, even St. Louis does not compare. But there's been a rivalry. There's been a Chicago-St. Louis rivalry for a long time. But, like, St. Louisans know Chicago is a far better city than ours. It's, you know, bigger. There's a lot cooler stuff there. It's much more established.
But that doesn't make any fucking sense. I mean, it's pretty obvious that, like, one is much bigger and more, like, global than the other. So the idea of there being a rivalry is kind of funny. That's sort of like people in
more baseball.
People being like, why would you go to Paris for tourism when you could visit Indianapolis, Indiana? Like,
right, when you can visit Paris, Missouri.
Yeah, why would you need to go? Why would you want to go to a Christmas market in Germany when you could go to Santa Claus, Indiana?
We have Herman, Missouri. It's settled by Germans, so you know they always have a nice Christmas market. Yeah, Chicago is great. We went up there for Memorial Day, and unfortunately, we had to cut it short because our dog sitter is a huge fucking idiot. He's our neighbor. Known him for years, and we went to Chicago, and then because my daughter had a dance competition. By the time we're at the dance competition, we drove up on Friday. Saturday was the dance competition. Daughter got a second in one of her dances. Very proud of her.
Shouts out to Francis's daughter.
Yeah, doing her hard shoe dancing.
Yeah. You know what we're gonna do? DJ air horn sound for Francis's daughter. As if to suggest that no one knows what I mean when I say DJ air horn for post-production.
Jack knows what an air horn is.
Yeah, but what if there was a conspiracy? Like, they wanted to stop your daughter from getting first place for woke reasons, and we have to investigate. We'd have to... Law and Order sound, don't worry. Yeah,
so he gives us a call around noon on Saturday saying, hey, I don't have a key to get into your house, which we did replace, like, windows and doors sometime in the last 6 months or so. And I had a key, like, look, I have a key that you can get to. But also, it had been 24 hours since we left, which meant the dog hadn't gone out in 24 hours. Dog and cats, none of them had been fed in 24 hours. And yeah, we got an older dog, you know, you can't just keep her inside for a full solid 24 hours and be like, no, that's fine. She doesn't need to eat or pee or anything like that. So we found that out. We were like, hey, all right, here's the key. Take care of the animals. We're coming home. And we were planning to spend the whole weekend, come back on Monday out in Chicago, but we had to cut it all short. Come home Saturday. We took the new van. So upside, the new van is very nice for road trips, very comfortable to take across the state. Hit a couple of roadside attractions. I actually have a video that by the time this episode is out, the video will be out with a slideshow, pictures from the trip, from some of the Route 66 places that we stopped off at too. So, but yeah, it's unfortunate, and we're all kind of mad at Roy.
Are you gonna like say his name? Does he know you have a podcast? Is he be like, my neighbor's talking shit about me on his podcast with some guy in Switzerland?
He does. He doesn't listen to my podcast, and also he knows he fucked up.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess I've talked about basically banging on my neighbor's door so hard it technically counts as impersonating a police officer. So like, if they knew about my podcast, they could probably figure out it was me. But yeah, you said before we started recording, you said you had some comments about Memorial Day. So was that the comment about Memorial Day? Yeah, I thought you were gonna be like, I fucking hate Memorial Day. It's glad they all died.
No. Memorial Day means, it's a 3-day weekend for me. It is nice that like we're far enough away from the wars that the weird jingoism isn't as prevalent as it used to be in American society.
Well, that's because you don't have my Facebook feed.
That's true. But yeah, I don't get on Facebook at all because that's a madness.
Well, no, I literally only click clicked on Facebook and it opened up the app because there was a local journalism story in London about the like electric rental bikes that apparently their design is such that they are famous for if you have an accident and they fall on you, like completely shattering people's femurs. And the problem was is that the story was really interesting, but you had to be like a subscriber, and I wasn't sure if there was maybe more info. I didn't want to pay for a thing for local. I mean, local journalism is important, but I don't live in London anymore.
Right.
And so I did happen to click on their Facebook page to see if I could find even more about the story. Apparently they call it Lime bike leg in hospitals in the UK, like the bike, because the Lime is the brand. It's an American company,
right?
Because they're so heavy, and the way that they're like kind of center column is shaped, like it's horrible. It's like a fulcrum to shatter your leg. Opening up Facebook, and every single thing on my feed was people had changed their profile pictures to like, you know, photos of dudes we all knew who died. And I was just like, what the man, why everyone is, and I was like, oh, right, it's Memorial Day on Monday. I'd forgotten, because this is obviously not a thing here. And, you know, it's not a day I get off. It's not a day Cynthia would get off. And I haven't really thought about it. And then some people messaged me, and, you know, less so than before. But I told my friend who did reach out, he was like sort of happy not getting killed by America Day. He's also a veteran. We were in Afghanistan together. I said, you know, to be honest with you, maybe this is like the statement of privilege, or maybe this is just the level I've ascended to, but I literally didn't even remember it was Memorial Day, that it was a thing. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, quite frankly, you know, I deployed once. My battalion lost 7 people. 3 of them were pretty good friends of mine. 2 of them were quite close friends of mine, so it sucked. A couple of my friends from later on got killed. One of my best friends from the Q course got killed in a training accident. Our class leader from the Q course wound up having to leave because of medical reasons and went to the 82nd. And I found out he died by seeing his photo shared on someone's Facebook feed, you know, when I was getting off a plane once. I just happened to check Facebook, and I'm like, oh my fucking God, Sergeant Hairston died? Like, man, he was really good. And I was just like, that was in like 2014. I'm like, what in the fuck, man? But like, I deployed 16 years ago. You know, like my friends who are still in are peers, are lieutenant colonels, most of whom, if they're still in, are commanding battalions now.
God, that was 2009?
Yeah, I was deployed in 09 to 10.
Shit, that's my last deployment too.
Yeah, 16 years.
A long
man.
time.
Like my buddies from infantry school, we're all year group 07. They are in the process of putting together their retirement packets because they're still grandfathered into the 20-year retirement thing since the Army's fucking changed it. And like,
well, I'm also 24 years removed from my first deployment.
Well, like they're literally lifers, but they're about to be post-lifers, which is a fucked up thing to say. But like, they've been lifers to the point where they're actually retiring, unless they're going to stay in and become fucking brigade commanders and try to go you know, shoot for the stars or whatever. But like, if the folks that I know who I could see trying, who I know are in those positions now as lieutenant colonels, there's maybe one of them where I'm not like, oh God help us if that does actually happen. But only one of them has good enough hair to be a general. I'm just saying, only one of them out there has good enough hair to be a general, and you know who you are, and I will not name you. You might listen to this, you might not. It's funny because I'm actually going to see a friend of mine tomorrow from my first unit. We weren't friends when we were in our first unit, but our views on life have changed a bit. And he's married to a Swiss woman. They live in America, but they're back visiting family, so I'm going to hang out. And I was just thinking, I'm like, yeah, the last time I saw you might literally have been 15 years ago. It's like, how do you explain to someone like, oh, so there's this thing called a podcast, but there's also so much other stuff, you know? It's like, that's how long ago it was. I mean, like, yeah, it was 16 years ago that we were deployed. I
play Dungeons and Dragons with a couple people that I deployed with, but I don't really see, they're all from Ohio, so I don't really see them very often.
They might as well be from the fucking moon then, right? I mean, geez.
Right. Ohio is an 8-hour drive for me. Like, I always think that Ohio is pretty close, but I got to cross a couple of states to get there.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I'm going to do some sound engineering, like front of house work for a musician friend in Italy and in Spain pretty soon. And I realized, like, if I were to drive from here, if I were to rent a car or buy a car because I have a license now and drive from here, it would probably be about 12-ish hours. And that seems impossibly far to drive from here. I mean, actually, it might be less than, it might be like 8 or 9 hours to drive from here to northern Italy. And that just seems impossible and stupid. And then I realized, well, in America, you do that all the time. Like, that's just normal. It's like, oh, I'm going to go.
Don't you have a train?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to take the train. Don't get me wrong. I was
going to say, Europe's lousy with trains. Yeah, well, imagine getting on one of those.
Switzerland has incredibly good trains, but they're not super fast because they kind of can't be, because everything is either mountains or valleys. So it's like the train tracks, the only place where they can get super fast is like the tunnels where they've cut straight lines, because none of the tracks are on straight lines. They basically follow the ridge lines and the coastline. So it's like 3 hours to Zurich, and then like 3 hours from Zurich to Milan, and then like an hour from Milan to the place I need to be is, I think it's like equidistant between Parma and Verona. So yeah, like call it 7 hours on the train, but at least I don't have to drive. I don't have to.
Yeah,
I don't have to drive in Italy. I'm not that brave. Well, I mean, I may have to. We may have to rent a car to get to the next show, so we'll see.
Right.
But yeah, man, like, yeah, you forget. You're like, oh yeah, America, it's huge, big distances.
You ready for an Ask a Dad question?
Yeah. Let's do it.
I got a Tool question for you.
The band
how many
Oh,
backup?
sorry.
What's
Was
that?
it Tool like the band or Tool like power tools?
We can do both.
Yeah, why not?
How long has it been since you've actually listened to a Tool song?
Voluntarily? It's been like 25 years.
Yeah.
I will say I did find it funny though, because there is a musician that I listened to some work by recently, and it turns out he was a member of Zwan with Billy Corgan, and there were I believe some crossover between people who had played as touring or session musicians with Tool and who had then also played in Zwan. So that's like a slight, or at least with a Perfect Circle. So that is like kind of a crossover, like Tool to a Perfect Circle to Zwan to the band Chavez. Like that is actually a thing. So you know what? Maybe kind of influenced by, but voluntarily put on Enema or fucking Undertow. I mean, like Clinton was still president. I'm going to be real with you.
Yeah, this is probably about the 90s for me as well. I have a lot of embarrassing music in my past.
I mean, me too.
Tool is one of them, even though like, I mean, they still kind of slap, I'm gonna be honest with you. But this is about regular tools. We're not going to get into music. How many backup 10mm sockets is enough?
With socket wrench, like for a socket wrench, right?
Like the 10mm socket is the one socket, the one wrench size you're probably going to use like 50% of the time. All the rest of them will be, maybe you use them, but I know that you guys have recently moved. I don't know if you've dragged tools with you, because I am in the same house. I have a huge wall of tools. I can think of like maybe 6 or 7 different variations of 10mm wrench or socket that I have access to, not counting all of my adjustable wrenches, which I have acquired over the years.
I left a lot of my tools at the TF studio because I needed them at the house to disassemble stuff, both for getting rid of it or for the movers. So I didn't ship it. It would have been just too cumbersome to do that. And also some of my power tools were pretty cheap, so I bought better stuff here. I kind of foregone buying new stuff because I didn't want to deal with adapter plugs and changing that out when I got also a lot of the stuff I was going to buy would probably have been German, and it's actually cheaper here than in the UK because you don't have the 20% VAT because of Brexit. I think I've got 3, not counting adjustable wrenches or fixed size wrenches that I have in toolkits. Like my sort of use on occasion tools are in a big tool chest in the basement storage, but in my stuff I keep in the house, I've got a small adjustable wrench. I've got a regular socket wrench set. I mean, these tools here in general are really good quality. Like they're not all made here, but like the ones made in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland are like just insanely good. I have, like I said, a set that's got, it's got one 10mm socket, and then it's got a bunch of different adapters for different kinds of like using it as part of not part of a drill bit set, but like a hand screwdriver set, a like kind of like tire iron set, like almost like a gooseneck one too. So it's just like getting into weird places with it. And then I've got a separate one that's like it's reserved specifically in this set to be used in a power drill for screwing and unscrewing. Because like, for example, Cynthia's got a weight bench here, and it's got 10mm sockets or hex bolts, and you use the 10mm socket wrench for that for assembly, disassembly. And so having that, like, you can do that with a hand socket wrench, but like, why? Do you really want to? Do you really want to be cranking it like that? Like, not in a fun way. Like having a like, you might use it to loosen it up in the beginning or like to tighten it at the very end, because that much torque you can start stripping stuff with the power drill. But like past a certain point when it's just the like getting it in and out, like the drill is so much easier. So I would say I've got 3. I've got 2 10mm sockets in sets that I use, and then I've got a 10mm fixed size wrench, and then I've got an adjustable wrench as well. So
yeah, like have plenty of tools around. They don't go bad. Your tool isn't gonna rot or rust as long as you're taking care of it. So
I'm still willing to part with it, but I have this old Japanese saw that my dad gave me that we used to call the Bushido blade that I've never used before. But like, I do actually have some projects where having it might come in handy at some point. So it is very funny how your life changes, and then suddenly you do need the tool that you thought was useless. So yeah, you never know. What I really need is probably a miter saw and a router, a good router, and like a small router, and I really need a workspace and a fucking very, very powerful vacuum cleaner for a wood shop and some tenting. protective sheeting, but I can't seem to get anybody to rent me a goddamn commercial space. So for the time being, I'm not really doing a ton of power tool stuff because like we have a baby. There's never a good time to do it. When you could, do you really want to be out on the balcony just sawdusting the fuck out of yourself? Like I gotten past the point where all the essential stuff is done, like the things like need to be done for like life to exist, in that way. And so now it's like a season of going ham with the power tools will happen again. For the time being, it's more like a season of finally getting exercise again and trying to like catch up on work and not get sick. So
the eternal struggle of the middle-aged man. Well, Nate, thank you for everybody. Thank you for listening. I think that's a podcast. We're at about an hour. We have lots of bonus content that's out for you. You can get all of that on patreon.com/hell of a way to die. 9 years, almost 9 years now of podcast bonus episodes.
Well, yeah, it was right after Trump got elected the first time that you started it, and then I joined not too long after. So it would be next December, not 2025, but 2026 will literally be 10 years we've been doing this show.
Yeah. It's a long time to be casting some pods. And we continue to do it because people continue to give us money on the Patreon. Again, patreon.com/hell of a way to die. 2 to 3 bonus episodes coming at you every month. Other than that, Nate, thank you for joining me. Everybody, thank you for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Yep, have a good one.